when you get down to the numbers that were mentioned, the chance of finding a match becomes very low. And one of the things I've learned from my Jamaican patients is that probably half the Jamaican population is outside Jamaica. Here in Canada, and mainly England, I guess, and the U.S. And so I think it's very important that the diaspora of Jamaicans contribute, because they can help the members of the community, not only here in Canada, but in the United States, England, and even back in Jamaica. So I think that, and the point about the matching is very complex, but the antigens, the proteins, the HLA that's on the surface of the cell that allows a person to accept somebody else's cells have to be sought out and compatible. And there are hundreds different variants of these proteins, but they segregate in communities. And so as a community, you are more likely to share those antigens than antigens that are in the community from Holland or Germany or India, for example. So each community is a microcosm of the so-called HLA antigen, human leukocyte antigen. And that's why it's important that we go out to communities to ask for their help.
And the registry that you're talking about, the worldwide registry, has about 29 million people on it right now. So, and that's, like you said, that we search that registry as well when we're looking to help people find a match. So if we need to, we'll import those cells from another country.
Well, thank you. And Dr. Minden, you answered a couple of questions I had. But between Chris and Dr. Minden, do you find that the statistical representation in the Canadian one match is representative of the, say, beta match in the US or some other place? That is, do you find, you talk about 70% here of Caucasians are here on the registry here in Canada. I suspect it's very similar in the US, and so it would be very similar for blacks and other minority groups as well. Is that something that's right across the board that you find in countries that have multiple ethnicities?
I think it's similar.
Yeah, I think it's very similar. Just the way, it's a representation of what the makeup of each registry is. So I would have a feeling that it's similar. Yeah, the minorities are the ethnic minorities are obviously underrepresented on the other end. You know, some of that has to do with cultural feeling and language barriers and things like that to get on the registry.
Okay, and back to you again, Chris. So given this severe underrepresentation, and we know that numbers are really, really important, so that people in minority communities who are affected can find a match. What specifically is One Match doing to target those hard-to-reach communities? And secondly, what are some of those myths and pushback that you get when you're out in the field from minority communities?
So a couple things that we do to try and target minorities. So I'm going to talk about cord for a second. So we now have a public cord registry in Canada, and we're at 5 different hospitals. One of the hospitals they put the program in place was Brampton Civic Hospital, just because we could get the most ethnic diversity from mothers donating there. So that was one of the reasons they did that, is to try and get more ethnic diversity on the cord registry. When people donate cord, it also goes on the same registry as we're talking about here with the 420,000 people on it. Other things we do is a lot of the work I do with high schools and universities, colleges. A lot of the high schools, for example, are inner city high schools or high schools that have higher diversity. I do a lot of work in Brampton where there's obviously more diversity to try and get more diverse people on the registry. So those type of things. And what was the second question? Oh, yeah, some of the barriers. I'm going to give an example of the Native community. So right now, if you're a Native person who needs a stem cell transplant, you're likely not going to find a match. There's hardly any Natives on the registry. One reason is they don't trust the government with the government having their information. So they will not fill out a form with their information on it, and that's just true. We've tried to break into that community a number of times, and they will not sign up. The only place you can find a match for somebody that's Native is obviously here. We can't go to Europe, we can't go to Australia, we can't go anywhere else to find a match. So yeah, that's the tough one there. So that's an example of one of the barriers we face trying to get more people on the registry.
So what information are you collecting? Does it get to the government or does it stay within?
Yeah, so the question was, what information do we collect and does it go to the government? So any information, so example, what the information we collected today was phone number, address, ethnicity, some questions about some high-risk questions. All that information stays with Canadian Blood Services. We have a very strict privacy policy, so we don't use that information for anything. It's only used for the registry itself. Even when somebody's markers get uploaded to the international registry, none of their information is on it. If those markers are ever to match, then they would ask for obviously the person's information so they can get in touch with them. And so I mean, there's a huge privacy policy at Canadian Blood Services, but even telling them that, they have that barrier where they just don't want to sign up just for that reason. It's a very tough community to get into.
I think in our community, we hear some of that, not a whole lot, but we hear a little of that as well. And that's, I guess there's some things that we can't break through. So this question to you, Dr. Minden. So in the case of the Native community, where the barrier is so high, with a patient who has leukemia or any other kind of blood disorder and doesn't have a match in their family, is there another option for them outside of a transplant for long-term survival?
The diseases are very heterogeneous, so I think that there are some forms of leukemia where without a transplant people can be cured, but the majority of forms of leukemia or MDS, in order to get a long-term cure where the disease doesn't come back, one needs a transplant. There are changes in transplant technology that are going on that don't require a full match, and you can talk more about that. So we are now doing half matches, and so that increases the chance of finding